What is the Harbinger? The mystery begins over 2,500 years ago in the Middle East, in the nation of Israel, the Northern Kingdom, a nation founded on the Word of God and consecrated to His purposes. But the people of Israel turned away from their God and began to drive Him out of their lives, out of their public square, out of their culture, out of the lives of their children. They rejected His ways, they broke His laws, they replaced Him with idols, and turned to gods of greed, materialism, and prosperity. What they had once known to be sin, they now promoted as righteousness. They now called evil good, and good evil. They descended into the depths of sexual immorality. And as for those who remained faithful to God and who kept His ways, they were now mocked, marginalized, vilified, and ultimately persecuted. And as for their most innocent, they lifted up their children as sacrifices on the altars of Baal and Molech. And God called to them and sent them prophets, but they would not listen. Finally, He allowed something to happen, a shaking, a wake-up call to call them back, to save them from national destruction. It would be the first Harbinger. But there was another nation, which had also been founded on the Word of God and dedicated to His ways.
And that nation was America. America was conceived for God's purposes. America was dedicated to God's glory from its very beginning by the Puritans. In fact, they saw America as patterned after ancient Israel. And they prayed and they consecrated this land to God's purposes. And America has been blessed more than any other nation in modern times.
But as with ancient Israel, America too has turned away from God and driven Him out of its public square, its culture, and the lives of its children. As with ancient Israel, they too rejected His ways and broke His laws and replaced Him with idols of greed, materialism, and prosperity. What they had once known to be sin, they now promoted as righteousness and called evil good and good evil. They too descended into the depths of sexual immorality. And as for those who remained faithful to God and who kept His ways, they too were now mocked, marginalized, vilified, and ultimately persecuted. And they too lifted up their children to death, millions of them. And as happened to ancient Israel, there would come to America a wake-up call, the first warning, the first Harbinger. The Harbinger reveals an ancient mystery coming true in modern times and manifesting in real life. It deals with facts and events as relevant as today's headlines, but the mystery is revealed through a narrative. In this, Jonathan Cahn follows the biblical use of story, parables, symbols, narrative, and imagery to bring forth spiritual or prophetic truth. The story focuses on a journalist named Noriel, who encounters a mysterious stranger known only as the Prophet. Their meetings appear to be chance encounters, from the observation deck of the Empire State Building to the western terrace of Capitol Hill. In these encounters, the Prophet gives Noriel an ancient clay seal. Each seal contains a mystery. Each mystery must be decoded and unlocked. Each mystery contains a message on which rests the future of America. It all begins with their first meeting in New York City, as Noriel sits down on a bench overlooking the Hudson River. The Harbinger's first mystery is revealed at Battery Park, New York City, with the giving of a seal bearing the image of a wall with a breach in the middle, a wall broken through. This opens up the mystery of the first Harbinger, the breach. The first Harbinger and the first warning sign of national judgment would come in the form of the breach. In the year 732 BC, Israel's hedge of protection was removed. An enemy was allowed to make a strike on the land. The strike was limited, temporary, and contained, one of the blessings God gave to them. It was a wake-up call, a shaking, so that they would turn back to God, that they would change their course and not be destroyed. After the attack was over, they were given a set time of years to return to God, to be restored as a nation, or to enter into judgment. But the people of ancient Israel would not heed the warning or turn back. Instead, they responded with defiance. They made a vow, which appears in Isaiah chapter 9, verses 8 through 10. The Lord has sent a word against Jacob, and it has fallen on Israel. All the people will know, Ephraim and the inhabitant of Samaria, who say in pride and arrogance of heart, the bricks have fallen down, but we will rebuild with hewn stones. The sycamores are cut down, but we will replace them with cedars.
So what they're saying is, God, you're not going to humble us. We're not going to come back to you. We're going to continue defying you. We're going to continue driving you out of our lives. Yet we're going to do it with even more gusto. We're not going to be humbled by this shaking. We're going to rebuild. We're going to make ourselves stronger.
This vow of defiance holds the key to the harbingers and would set the course for the nation's judgment when years later the kingdom of Israel would be wiped off the face of the earth. America was now the nation in rapid departure from God. And so the first warning sign of national judgment, the first harbinger, appears. The breach.
The first harbinger appears to America on September 11, 2001, when the nation's hedge of protection is removed. America, for so much of its history, had a sense of invincibility. But on September 11th, that all changed.
The nation's hedge of protection is lifted. A strike is made on the land. As with the strike on ancient Israel, the attack was limited, contained, and then over. It was a wake-up call, but there would be no return to God, no spiritual revival. In fact, in the years since 9/11, America would grow even farther from God, much farther than before. And in the wake of 9/11, America would take the same steps taken by ancient Israel. The ancient judgment drama would be replayed by a modern nation, and the biblical harbingers of a nation under judgment would begin to manifest.